26 years old. Bill Rooney is 42. Ed Johnson is 32. And Carlos Velarde is 21. Now, despite their age differences, these men have something in common. They are all fathers of babies. That's right. How does the age difference of the dad make a difference to the child, or, for that matter, to the father himself? I'm Tom Bergeron. The perspectives of 4 decades on fathering toddlers today on People Are Talking. The old image of a dad of a toddler being in his 20s, I think, has pretty much gone out the window as people are waiting longer, I know from personal experience, to become parents. And we have some examples of that today. And that's pretty much what we'll be talking about as we go into the Father's Day weekend. Vico's 8-month-old son, Michael Joseph, couldn't be here with us today, but we have some great pictures of Michael Joseph. You are 56 years old.
That's correct.
All right. And what?
And counting.
And counting, right. That's the important part. Bill Rooney's, we have with us Brian, who is 11 weeks old, is that right?
That's right, Tom.
And looking darn fine. Ed Johnson's 3-month-old daughter, Precious Faith,
Yes.
is here with us. That's a lovely name.
Thank you.
And Carlos's 1-year-old son, Carlos Jr., looks like he's ready to blow sacks or something with that bottle. Let me ask Vico first. Do you have any older children who have grown up?
I have a boy from the first marriage, 27.
Who is 27 years old.
Correct.
Had you planned to have another child at this point in your
No,
life?
we didn't plan it.
Yeah.
It was a complete surprise, a pleasant surprise.
It was?
Yes.
What were the first thoughts that went through your mind when you found out your wife was pregnant?
Well, I was wondering, really, I think as most fathers over 50 do, is how will society accept me now? Mm-hmm. Because I myself had seen what happens to many of the fathers when they're older. People sort of shun them and say, how could you do such a thing at your age? It isn't
Now,
fair.
who is doing this? Is it their peers, their friends who are aghast that they would go through the process again?
Right. And then, of course, there's also there's some bit of shame that people come back, that you're over 50, you mean, and you're still doing it? I mean, is this what it's all about?
What do you mean? Wait a minute. You're still making babies, or you're still doing it?
Yeah. You're still doing it.
Yeah. Were you?
I think it's jealousy, but they conceal it another way.
That could be. Are you ever, the key thing I hear towards fathers who are older, do you ever feel like, gee, I hope I'm alive to be at her college graduation? Or
that is the main concern.
Yeah.
The initial thought was, I'll be in my 70s when my son is in high school. Mm-hmm. Will I be able to keep up with him? Will I be physically able to chase him around?
Yeah.
How will I feel? How will he think of me as his dad being that much older when his friends' dads are that much younger?
Mm-hmm. Now, for you, Bill, at 42 years old, do you feel any of those pressures of being sort of an older dad?
I felt some of them initially, but we have a 2.5-year-old Sean, and when he was planned, and when we first thought of having Sean, I had some concerns. But then, as I looked around, we went to Lamaze classes. There were actually fathers in the Lamaze classes older than me, and as you travel around, it seems to me you see older fathers. I work with men who are older than me who have young children as well.
You're not finding then the same sort of stigma that's attached to late fatherhood like Vico's talking about?
I don't think at my age group, in the 40s. I see more fathers in the 40s nowadays.
Yeah. For you, Ed, at 32 years old, you're closer to my age. I'm 34.
Yeah.
This is your first child?
No, my wife and I have 3 children.
You have 3 children?
Yes.
How old are they?
15, 12, and 8.
All right, so you're at a point as with Vico where you could have said, okay, I've pretty much raised them for the most part. Why start over again?
Well,
Why? Yeah, mom over here said, why not?
Why
right?
not?
And looking at her, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
let me ask.
our age is a perfect age. I mean, any age to have children is a good age as long as you're physically and mentally able you know, to raise the child and prepare the child for a good future.
You might need a little napkin or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. Good save.
Thank you. Good look.
Good. Is he a better dad now or different dad than he was with the kids who were in their teens?
Well, yeah. I think the learning experience from the prior children helped him a lot. I mean, you can only do so much with a 3-month-old baby, you know. But yeah, I mean, starting now, yeah, he's all right.
Is he more involved?
Yeah, too involved.
Oh, he's too involved.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Most women I wouldn't think would complain about that.
Well, you know, sometimes he can be overprotective. You know, when we go outside, if it's too cold out, he's, you know, do this, do that. If I go in the store and it's air conditioner, put the coat on, go outside, the mosquitoes.
So basically
you know?
he's turned into a nudge.
Yes, like buy her a glass bubble or something, you know, because he's just super protective, and it can be bothersome.
And you weren't that way with the others so much?
Well, I think that I'm really just coming into my own. And that's my excuse.
Now, Carlos, you're 21 years old. Where'd Carlos Jr. go?
He went outside. He was being a little fuzzy.
He was being a little, that's all right. I get that way sometimes, too. How old were you? So you were in your late teens when your son was born.
20 years old when
now,
was born.
The complete opposite of what I asked Vico.
That's right.
Did you ever feel, I'm too young for this. I can't handle this responsibility yet. I know it personally, at 20 years old, I had just stopped sucking my thumb, so I don't know if I could have handled.
Both my wife and I were very worried about that because we both were going to college, and the birth of Carlos was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
But we saw each other as being mature enough to handle it and being mentally prepared for it, which is the most important thing. Even though we weren't financially prepared for it, I mean, we didn't have a stable salary, a home, and everything that is traditional, but we were emotionally ready, and we were willing to devote ourselves 100% to rear Carlos as best we could.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Who do we have on the phone? We have Betsy and Sharon. Hi, Betsy.
How you doing, Tom?
Good. It's my favorite subject.
I was supposed to be in the audience today with my husband and my 2.5-year-old son, and
Yeah?
I wasn't able to be there because he became sick last night, and guess who got up with him? My husband.
Wait, who got up with him?
My husband got up with my son last night. He turned out to have a temperature, and my husband got up to take care of him.
Is this something he usually does?
Yes, he does. He's phenomenal. And my point was that his father was 50 when he was born and wasn't able to really be, you know, in those days they really weren't involved as much as they are now.
Yeah.
And my husband is just phenomenal. He's always with my son. He gets up in the morning with him and spends an unbelievable amount of quality time with him. And I'm very proud, and so is, I mean, people around him just marvel at him.
So he's basically very intent on making up for the lack he felt from his own dad.
I don't know if it was so much a lack, but in those days it just wasn't. Fathers didn't change diapers and do the types of things that dads do now.
Yeah.
So he really appreciates the fact that he's able to spend as much, you know, quality time with him and enjoy him like he does.
Thank you, Betsy, for that observation. Sorry you couldn't make it here. You were talking to me now, sir. You've been a dad how many times?
4 times.
4 times. And what's the range of ages?
Adam's 20, Jason's 16, Justin is 8, and Alexandra is a year old.
And this is Alexandra right here. Hi, Alexandra. How are you? Now, how has that been an experience for you, personally going through all those different age groups?
Well, it's been fabulous, but the earlier deliveries, the older boys, you weren't allowed in the delivery room. With Justin and Alexandra, you're allowed in, and it's part of it's a real great bonding experience.
Do you feel a different emotional connection then between your younger children than your older kids?
No, not really. Even though the bonding with the younger ones was much different than the older ones.
Can I just mention the baby relay that's going on off camera is more entertaining. We're going over here and hanging over there, and going to mommy. Why is it when the baby fusses, dads, they always go to mommy? What's going on?
They have the patience.
In my house, she goes to me.
Yeah,
I have a calming influence on her.
Is that
because
right?
I've had more experience.
Oh, is that?
This is our first child. The other boys, my older boys, Adam, Jason, and Justin, are from other wives.
Do you defer to him as far as the parenting experience, or?
A lot of the time.
A lot of the time, yeah. Do you ever resent the fact that he's that involved?
A little sometimes.
In what ways?
It's that he's always right.
Is he always right, or is he just more sure that he's always right?
He's more sure that he's always right.
It's experience. I've had the experience.
How about for you, Vico? Because you're in a similar situation as he is with older kids and now a young child. Do you feel a different bonding with your young child?
Most definitely, because the situation is entirely different.
Yeah.
At the younger age, I was climbing the mountain and trying to build a financial situation and establishing myself in the business world. At this point in life, I've been to the top of the mountain. I've been over the road. So everything seems to be moving in slow motion.
Really?
Everything the baby does happens in slow motion.
Now that no kidding. That's an interesting perspective because as you mentioned that, we're looking at men who are at very different places in that career climb. And one of the things that there's a fatherhood conference I'm part of at Wheelock College tomorrow. And one of the whole issues is balancing career and fatherhood. Right. I want to talk about that when we come back with you, gentlemen. And we'll talk more about how you perceive your own dads as well and the lessons you learned from them. As we continue, stay with us. We're back. The baby relay is going on as the show goes on. As the babies start to feel like they'd rather watch cartoons, the moms are taking them out and letting them calm down, then coming on back. So we'll have some vacancies here for a while. Joining us right now is Dr. Ronald Levant, who is the co-author of this book, Between Father and Child, and is really a great guidebook for preparing yourself for a lot of stages in a child's development, including some important tips on how to talk to a child about some very difficult parts in their lives. Do you see in your research at all on dads that being of a certain age for a father presents certain advantages and disadvantages?
Sure, Tom. I think it was mentioned that an older father is more likely to have established their career, and I think that carries with it also the idea that they're more likely to be financially secure and have more time available. But the other side of that is that an older father really has to make special arrangements for the financial security of his children because he doesn't know exactly how long he's going to be able to continue earning money. An older father, I think, as opposed to a younger father, is likely to have more time available, as Vico put it, to sort of take things in a slower pace.
Yeah.
A younger father, on the other hand, is just more likely to have energy to do it.
Now, Vico, do you buy that?
Yeah, you just don't have the same end. My head says yes, but my body says no. That's what it amounts to. And there is a much bigger commitment at my age than at the younger age because that clock is continually running. It's not like a New Year's Eve resolution where you break it on January 1st. This is a commitment with a human life, so you have to make the most of it.
Now, let me ask our younger dads, Carlos and Ed particularly, even though you theoretically have a lot more energy than Vico, and if you'll pardon me, maybe Bill has, do you find that you feel obliged to spend that energy more building a career base, building a professional, a solid professional base first?
Well, I find it that I need the extra energy just to keep our family alive, with the financial aspect.
Right.
Because I need to go to school and also continue working to make all the payments. My wife and I work. And so I need that extra added energy to just continue so that we can survive. But yet I also make time Saturdays and Sundays, which are completely family time. So
That's great.
No matter if I have an exam, term paper, what have you, Saturdays and Sundays are for my wife and my son.
Yeah.
I was concerned about the energy level myself, but at 42, I run every day, 5 or 6 miles every day. I'm in much better shape now than I was in my 20s and my 30s. So I'm conscious of, when I get into my 60s, my children will be, at a much younger age. I want to be able to participate in their life at that time. Right. So I am conscious of that, and I take steps towards that end.
Let's go to Donna in Roslindale on the line. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, Tom. I would just like to make a comment. I would just like to say that, hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. That I think that the 55-year-old gentleman that you have, in 10 years, his little boy is going to be 10 years old. I just was wondering if he feels like he's going to have enough energy to raise this child that's 10 years old and when they're going to do things with his father. And, at that point, he's going to be like 65 years old around there. And
right.
I don't know. I just feel that...
Now, how old is your dad?
My dad's 52.
Is 52?
Yeah.
And how old are you?
28.
28. So he's sort of a young dad.
Yeah. And when I was little, I had a lot of fun with them as well as my brothers and sisters had a lot of fun with them growing up.
All right, let's ask Vico about that, because you're hearing the same thing that you hear a lot.
Well, none of us can predict the future, and it could be tomorrow that I'm gone, or it could be 20 years from now. So I have to make the most of every day and put that in the back of my mind.
Right.
It's a matter of establishing priorities, as I said before, making that commitment, and then going ahead and doing the most that I can to make sure that I impart to this child the things that I feel are most important, like knowledge, education, good health, and then he can go it on his own the best way he can. But
Jackie,
I'm prepared to stay around for quite a while.
Good.
This gentleman here, as far as age is concerned, with age comes wisdom, and as far as the wisdom is concerned, you won't need that much energy if you just use your wisdom in dealing with the kid. And being older, you've experienced more and you've learned more, so it shouldn't be that difficult for you to, share that with your children or to, transfer that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not only that, but I think all these gentlemen are in excellent shape. Look at these guys. I mean, they're prime examples of men that have taken care of themselves in 40 and 55. That's young. I mean, they're also family members. I'm sure they have family that can help out. I mean, Well,
I took it one step further, and when I found out that I was going to be a father, I began looking at information, because that was one of the things I felt was knowledge was power, and I couldn't get too much information on fatherhood later in life. So I founded a club called the Fathers Over 50, or I prefer to call it the Not Quite Over the Hill Gang.
Gotcha. One thing I want to ask, because one of the key things I was told as we were expecting our daughter, it's going to change your life. And that way, if there's anything that I've always heard, it's going to change your life. When you've already been a dad, when your kids are grown, and you become a dad again, does it change your life again?
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
It's really a great experience. You're starting all over.
Yeah.
And you have
you didn't feel like, I did this already, I just can't summon the...
I love children and I love family, so having more, it just was easier. I think as far as the energy level, it's more of a patience level. I think we all have energy no matter what age we are. And as we get older and have more children, something kicks in and says, you've made this commitment, you got to go.
I definitely think, as I said, in my 20s, I would not have been mature enough to be a dad. I think I have more patience now than I would have then.
My name's Bill. I'd like to ask that fellow to the right, what's a super dad? What do you classify that as?
We always hear the super mom.
A super
theory.
dad. What do you call that?
The woman who works, who raises a family, and that type of thing. Most dads, and at the risk of getting some women angry, frankly, most dads have had to deal with that a lot. If they haven't been as open about it, the anxiety of not feeling as connected with their kids, and that of sort of surrendering the parenting to the mom because they have to go out and earn the money.
Well, certainly men are susceptible, as are women, to trying to do too much, and I think parents of this generation probably have a greater temptation to try to excel in a career and be an excellent parent and put a greater stress level on themselves as a result. But one of the things I'm finding, and there was an article in the USA Today about this, and also an article in Wall Street Journal earlier in the week, more and more dads are finding that when they try to continue the normal pace of business life, including going on business trips, that during the course of that they terrifically miss their children. And this is a different phenomenon. This is a different thing. I mean, I don't think my father or men of that generation would say that it's just got to be done. I've got to go on. I've got to travel, and that's part of my job.
Grindstone, that kind of thing. Yeah. Let's go. We're going to the phones in just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wonder if any of the gentlemen have a preference if it's more difficult to raise daughters or sons.
Good question.
I have two sons, I can't tell you.
Can't tell you, yeah?
Well, two sons.
Two sons?
I think you have to put,
What's the mix of kids? You got daughters and sons?
2 girls and 1 boy.
2 girls and 1 boy, right.
So it's, as long as the priorities are there and what you put in your children, you'll get out. So if you put good things into them, you'll get good things out of them. So
I want to pursue that a little bit more, though, in a little bit. Pam's calling in Cambridge. Hi, Pam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. The comment I wanted to make was I think that older fathers tend to have a different set of values to pass on to their children. They seem to be more mature and able to deal with the children sometimes better than a very young father. And I think that's a good thing to pass on to your children.
Hold on a second, because Carlos, you're shaking your head no.
I agree with what you're saying, but you can't make generalizations about everyone just, you have to, look at individuals. And I feel myself personally, I have devoted myself as much of a commitment as the older fathers here. And I spend as much time as I can with my son. And in fact, my wife works, she leaves the house at 7 o'clock in the morning. I take care of him. He gets up, I give him his breakfast, I take him to school, I pick him up. So I'm mentally prepared for that.
Ron, it would strike me that generally, though, even though you don't want to make generalizations usually, you can make some based on just generational differences as we progress through life. I would think that some that have been made here today are valid. By and large, the older father is a more patient, mature.
Well, I think the generalizations are valid, but you know what I think? I think a good father is a good father, and he uses what he has. And if he has more energy, he uses that. And if he has the wisdom of 25 or 30 years of living as an adult, he uses that. I think the bottom line is that kids are enormously flexible in terms of how they respond to parents. And you don't have to be perfect to raise good kids. You just have to be good enough.
One thing that you all bring with you, regardless of age, is the memory of your own dads or the memory of the absence of your father in some cases. I want to hear how that has impacted your own parenting skills when we come back after this. That's the spirit. It's Sean, right? That's the spirit, Sean. Let me ask the dads up here, and you're a dad too, so feel free to jump in. Your own fathers, how well did you know them? How much did their fathering impact yours, Vico?
Yeah, well, it was a tremendous impact on me, but of course I couldn't sort it out until I was much older. I didn't know why I was the way I was, which happens to many of people as they reach adulthood. He's a very strict disciplinarian of European upbringing, and he would not budge 1 inch. And what I learned basically was that instead of encouraging, he discouraged. You can't do this, Vico. Don't try that. So until I was in my late 20s that I realized I had capabilities, and I felt I lost many years by not trying. And I would never think of doing that. I didn't do it with my first son. I went over the other way. I encouraged him to do everything. I gave him projects. And it affected me greatly in my lifestyle, and I felt I really did not begin to enjoy life until I was past 30.
Is your father still alive?
He passed away last year at 90, and he went out the way he came in, hard as a rock, not giving an inch.
Did you mourn his death?
No, I didn't. In fact, he became very ill with cancer, and he passed away within 3 weeks, and I stayed with him every minute because I thought it would be an experience seeing one life being born with my new son and seeing another life passing on. But it didn't leave me with the good feeling I thought it would be, because even though I had that closeness with him at the end, he still made comments like when I was at the hospital and I bent over to kiss him goodbye for the day, he'd look up as weak as he was and he'd say, "Men don't kiss men." And he would have that little cold, that wall would still be there. Or other comments that I'll never forget, "I never thought you would do this much for me," is when I would shave him in the hospital or help clean him up or do all of these things. He couldn't accept it.
Do you feel a loss for that?
No, I don't feel a loss. I feel a loss of the time, but the hospice unit did a fantastic job in support. And when you say, do I mourn it, they called me about 3 weeks after he passed away and they asked me if I'd like to join a group so that I could get out this mourning. And I said, no thanks, there's no mourning going on. And it sounds terrible, but there wasn't any. It was just that wall that was impenetrable, and I could never pierce it. And I couldn't pierce it in life, and I couldn't pierce it in his death.
Bill, what about you and your dad?
I think my situation is similar to what a lot of people probably experience, in that society's attitude towards fathers has changed, and fathers' attitudes has changed. I was brought up in the 50s. As Ron pointed out, my father's main job at that time was to be the breadwinner. He brought the money home for the food, clothes, and housing. And he didn't participate as much as I feel I participate with my family. However, the values that he passed on to me are the values that I have today. So,
you're a different dad though than your dad?
Basically, I'm a bit different person than my father, but my basic values were, given to me by my father. And as I saw him as a role model in the way he lived his life and the way he lives his life, in the way, that's what I learned from.
Are you close with him?
Yes.
There wasn't any hesitation there?
Well, close as, as Vito was pointing out, we don't kiss each other, men don't kiss men, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I kiss both of my sons all the time and probably always will.
Yeah. Laurel's calling from Brookfield. Hi, Laurel.
My question is to, I guess, all the members of the panel, and it fits in with what you're discussing. Now, my husband was there when both of my children were born, and I felt that was not only beneficial to me, but beneficial to the children. But he was the first one that got to hold the babies.
Yeah.
And did these men did any of them witness that? And I also feel that my father was kind of cold towards me, and I don't know if it was a bonding issue and possibly because he was working 2 jobs and he never got to be in the emergency, in the delivery room. But it's kind of strange. I really feel like my husband's very close to my children because he was there.
I only have one child to share the experience of, but that was a very incredible experience to be there for the
This is one of the things that has demonstrably changed the most in the last 10 years. It used to be, in 1974, only 25% of fathers physically were present during the births of their children, and by now it's well over 80%. And that's a very significant change because the act of being present has been found by research to foster a very close father-child bond.
Yeah.
And it starts the relationship very much off on the right foot, as the woman described.
Well, as I was holding our daughter, because after the pediatrician checked her over, I got her, and I was holding her for, I guess, a very long time, because my wife started saying, excuse me, but I would, like to see the baby here. You are also, I should mention, the director of Boston University's Fatherhood Project. Now, what does it do? What are you seeking to find out about We Fathers?
Well, it's not so much a research as it is, or it was. It's closed now, but it was a service project designed to offer services to men who were, reared by their fathers to be very much like their fathers. That is, chief, breadwinners and good providers, but who instead are finding themselves given the choice between the morning shift, in terms of making breakfasts and lunches and getting children off to daycare and school, or the evening shift of starting the dinner and getting the children settled into daycare, and finding that they didn't quite feel that comfortable in the new fatherhood role.
You were talking about scheduling and stuff like that
I was curious if any of the gentlemen on the panel have ever experienced a role reversal, because I'm like a Mr. Mom. My wife calls me Mr. Mom, because she works days and I work the night shift, so I take care of the baby during the day hours. I go to work with the baby.
When do you sleep?
I sleep about 4 hours a day.
Oh, gee.
Then I nap when he naps. He's a beautiful baby. He's been our joy. He's been our pride and joy, and we're very fortunate to have such a happy baby, because he had a rough start at first. Hard 3 months, but now he's settled down. And I'd like to just say one thing about what he was saying about fathers, the age gap. My father's 73 years old. It's a big gap. And I think one thing about men and fathers, boys and their fathers, is a macho thing about not being able to open up with your father, which I really never have been able to do. But I'd like to say to my father now, I love you, and
That's good. Is that, this is one of the things that occasionally amazes me about doing this kind of show. Is it easier to say that here in a TV studio than it is to him?
Much easier.
Interesting. Let's go to Steve in Marshfield. Hi, Steve.
Oh, hi, Tom. How you doing?
Good.
I'm just going to tell you that I'm a 42-year-old dad.
Yeah.
I have 2 boys that are 20 and 21, and a 3-month-old little girl that I waited 20 years for.
Yeah.
And due to circumstances and my wife's career and mine, I'm at home now every day, taking care of my little daughter, and I love it. It's what I miss with my boys, and I'm Mr. Mom too, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
All right. When we come back, I want to, for those of you who have relationships with your fathers and who are more emotional with your kids than he was with you, I want to get a sense of how Dad critiques you as Dad when we come back after this. right, over here, yes.
I'd like to just basically say to Carlos, I run a program for the Urban League called the Young Fathers Program. And just to piggyback off of what he said, you don't have to be 50 or 42 to be a good father. And I have a lot of young men. One of my young men was supposed to be here today, but he had something to do with his child. So there are a lot of young men who are responsible, who are young. And I think that just by looking at him here, I think a lot of people look at the young men and they are a very stigmatized group. And just understand that he's with his child. That's very important.
I know that, but the young fathers, that was the normal group for dads, Ron. Well, I mean, it sounds odd to hear a young father is stigmatized because he's young, because normally it was the young father who you saw all the time.
30 years ago, we would have said that anybody over 25 has waited too long.
Yeah.
Normally in the first half of the decade of the 20s that people had children.
We're talking about the men who are under 25, the guys who are like 17, 19. That's the group that I work with. So that's very difficult. He said that he was 20 or 21 years old, so his son might have been here a little sooner. And you don't have the same support systems. If you were to look for, you have the Almost Over the Hill gang, but before that, there haven't been many programs that even deal with that. So you're talking about something very new.
I think Carlos has his head on straight. I mean, one key thing that he said that I like was that he makes family time. I mean, that's very, very important, that a father, even though he's in school or working, and both of them are working, that he realizes that he needs a family gathering once or twice a week.
I want to get back to the point about your fathers and how they feel about you as dads in a minute. But the one thing I'm really intrigued with, what is the one thing you would like to say to your wives that you feel they just don't understand about your pressure? Don't laugh, women. All the women, they don't have any problems. Nothing?
No.
If we do all these shows of these angst-ridden women saying, he doesn't understand me, you know what I mean? And I mean, they have real problems and all that, but I want to hear from the dads, what is it that they don't get? They just don't get it about what you deal with. Ed?
Well, I guess it's the patient.
Don't shake your head no at your husband.
I guess it's the patient factor. I have a little difficulty dealing with my daughter when she's crying immensely.
Yeah.
My wife seems to handle that a lot better than I do. She knows the cry mode, so to speak.
Does she resent the fact that you can't handle it as well? You do resent that. You do.
I do, because sometimes I mean, I'm home all day with the baby, okay, and he's at work, and just because I'm home doesn't mean that I'm home sitting in front of the TV all day, Edward. I'm dealing with the baby. And, when he comes home, I'm ready to say, here, you take him and let me, do what I have to do, take a shower or clean up. And he's like, well, honey, she's crying. And what he'll do is he'll take her and he'll follow me all around the house until I'm ready to take her back. And I don't understand him, and he doesn't understand me in that situation.
Carl, go ahead. First over here. Yeah, go ahead.
I have no complaints, because when I come home after work, I take care of Brian for the night, and I get up through the night and do the feedings. But that's a piece of cake compared to what my wife does, being home all day, taking care of both the boys and feeding and putting up with the crying and everything. So
you've never had a day where you came home and said, look, I had a real hard day at work, and I'm bringing home the bacon here, and just deal with it, will you? Please?
No, I don't.
Never have?
That.
All right.
No.
He's very good-natured? Sainthood possibility, you think?
No.
No.
I'd like to add.
What?
I'd like to add. I'm trying.
All right.
He's trying, but I guess, being home all day, I get frustrated because, my time is so much with her that I don't have the time to do what I personally want to do. And when he comes home, I want to just say, here, take her. And he's coming home from a hard day's work, and he doesn't want to, he wants to rest, and I'm saying, here, take her.
Like your dad did, right? Come home, put your feet up, give me a beer, honey.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, Tom, it gets back to the hard day's work. My father was a laborer. He went out and he worked hard, and when he came home at night, he was tired from a hard day's work. Fortunately, I do not have to do physical labor.
Yeah.
I may be a little mentally tired when I get home, but I'm not in that situation.
I know, because at the end of my work day, my jaw's killing me, but that's about it. Carlos?
No, I was just going to mention that for my case, it's completely opposite, because both my wife and I work full-time, and my son goes to daycare during the day. So my wife takes off very early in the morning, and I take him to school, and then we both pick him up. And so each day we share duties, like, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I will do the dinner and clean the dishes, and she'll do the dusting and and the vacuuming and all that, and it reverses each other day.
Ron, let me ask you, as a psychologist, the director of the Fatherhood Project, co-author of a book on being a good dad, do you ever get criticized for being this big expert? You're such a big expert, and you can't make it work at home. You ever get it? Apparently we've hit a nerve.
Don't do as I do. As I say.
Yeah. Does that ever come
well,
up?
Of course. I mean, I make as many mistakes as the next guy. I mean, it's very hard when it's your own child or it's your own family and it's your own life and you're stressed out to always do the right thing.
Sure.
And it's different to study these matters and work professionally with people. And of course, Tom.
What is the one thing you would most like to change about your own dadhood?
My own dadhood?
Yeah.
I would like it to have slowed down. My daughter's now 26, and it feels like that whole era went by far too quickly. I'm now a grandfather. I have a 27-month-old grandson, and so I'm sort of back in the infancy phase of it. But, you know, I just wish... See, I was very involved in my career during the first 5 years of my daughter's life, going to school and all of that. And I just wish it had slowed down some, because it just goes... Like
you want to be a dad again, and a new, like Vico did?
Well, I'm not in that situation, but I try to get some of that through being a grandfather.
I see. Yeah. Joe's calling in Worcester. Hi, Joe.
How you doing?
Good.
And I like to comment on the responsibilities, like they were saying they work the split shifts and all. And I work the same way, and I'm home babysitting now. I'm 29 and the father of two. I have a 17-month-old daughter running around here trying to grab the phone cord, and my 4-month-old son is sleeping, thank God.
Yeah.
And we split the duties. I do about 90% of our housework. And I wash dishes, and, when my wife's home, I feel I don't do as much as I should with the babies, as in diapers and bathing. But, it's got to be fair, you got to try to at least split it 50-50. But I give my wife more credit than me because she's got a lot more patience than I do.
Let me ask you, Joe, do you ever, when your kids are running around and you're trying to get them down for a nap and you're sitting here at home during the daytime, do you ever think, wait a minute, it wasn't supposed to be like this?
That happened yesterday. One was crying after I changed his diaper, my son, and my daughter fell and bumped her head, and they're both running around, one screaming in each ear, and I said, there's got to be better things to be doing than this. But you love them in the end, you love them, and there's nothing else you can do. They're great. I wouldn't change anything.
All right, Joe. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back after this.
He turned his basement into a shutterbug's dream. Meet a New Englander who has the largest and most unusual collection of cameras on Evening Magazine, tonight at 7:30.
Look at Brian and Precious Faith have both gone off to dreamland, huh? Is that right? Okay, over here. Who had it? Yeah, you had it.
Oh, I did. It's for Vico and the author. Do you find that today, versus when you first had your child years ago, that it's the family structure, raising children today versus 20 years ago, a little tougher today since people are getting married later in life versus...
It's one of the fears of the older father of bringing a child into the world with the situation it is today with the drugs and the wars and terrorism and those things, and you're saying, I'm not going to be here probably to help protect them. So that is a major concern. But I think we've glossed over a lot on her wants and his wants, where at this stage of the game it's really our wants. Before Mikey was born, if you said to me, do you think you'll be happy getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and making a bottle and changing a dirty diaper and then going to work? And I'd say, you got to be kidding. But we actually fight with each other to see who gets up to get him out of his crib to give him his bottle. So the secret there, and I'm asked that a lot of time from older fathers, is what's the secret formula? We each think, my wife and I, that we're both doing not enough for each other. We're doing too much for each other. And we have to meet that expectation. So I'm always trying to do more for her. She's always trying to do more for me. And what it's become really is a love triangle. That's the bottom line. We love each other more because of the child. We love the child. We love each other. And it's a continual circle. It sounds corny, but it works.
It's a nice way to look at it, yeah.
I think in some ways raising a family or being a family is tougher than it was in the 50s, because in the 50s, the roles were more sharply defined. Most women were homemakers, and so you had one parent home. Nowadays, better than half of the mothers of small children are in the workforce, and both parents are trying to work. And it's a necessity now, because I think back in the 50s it was possible to own a home and send children through school on one income, whereas you can't do that these days. And also the problems of the drugs and the violence in the inner cities and things like that, I don't know, maybe I'm romanticizing the past, but I don't think they were quite as bad when I grew up. There certainly didn't seem to be a drug problem in the 50s as there is now.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get this question answered. Do your dads, to the extent that they're either alive or you're in touch with them much, think you're good dads yourselves? No?
Never discussed it.
Never did? No. Are you interested in his opinion at all?
Sure. But I think the way things have always been with my father, if I seek advice or his opinion, he'll certainly give it to me. So in this case, I haven't asked him. But I think he probably thinks I am just from the way he reacts to situations.
Yeah.
Well, my father passed when I was 2 years old, but my father figure in my life is my pastor. And as God has put him in our family's life, and he is an example that we are following. And
do you regret, though, not having known your own natural father? It's good that you have certainly a wonderful role model, but...
Well, even though my father died at a very young age, his fruits were still around.
Yeah.
I saw that he was a provider, that he cared for my mother. I see that he was a man of character.
Carlos?
I have to say that, getting back to your question on what my father thinks of my fatherhood, and I think automatically he is upset at the fact that I'm so young. My father's Vic's age, and automatically he was upset that I chose to have a son in such a
Is this
young
your
age.
dad? This is your dad with Carlos Jr.?
Yeah, it's him.
He doesn't look too upset here.
No, but he was he would hope that I would have waited to be financially secure.
How old was he when he had you?
He was 25 when he had me.
So
he was financially secure. He had a job. He was beginning his business.
Right.
So he was hoping for that. But he also, when he sees me completely sharing roles with my wife 50-50, and I'll get up in the morning and do the bottles, change the diapers, every time he ever saw that, I know it puzzled him. And a few times he'd say, geez, he'd just nod his head and say, that's
not your
the way
job.
It's supposed to be. Right,
Okay,
exactly.
Kathy's calling from Everett. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. I have a comment and a question, mainly for the doctor on the panel. I was wondering, does this happen quite often? My father remarried when I was about 17 years old, and he's been married now about 15 years. Now, over the course of the 15 years, his priorities have changed. He makes no bones about saying that his new wife is first.
Uh-huh. Does he have other children with her?
No. At one point, she wanted them, but he didn't want any more, which I could understand because he's 14 years older than she is.
Okay, so what's your question again?
Well, I've often felt it very hard to deal with, that I'm not as important to my father as I think I should be. Okay. And I'm wondering if this happens quite often with men that remarry.
Yeah, good question.
It's a very good question, especially as more and more people divorce and ultimately remarry. I was going to mention that when we talked about the older father, because I think that is one of the problems that an older father has to confront, which is how his first family, if he had a first family, how his first family might feel about his second family. Very likely the older children. Was that an editorial comment?
Alexandra was answering the question, I think, out here. What were you saying? You're going...
She has older brothers.
Yeah.
This is my third marriage.
Uh-huh.
And there is a point there.
You want to write the book?
You've got to instill in the children that the love for them has not diminished
That's right.
or waned in any way, and that your new bride is not taking anything really away from them.
Right.
And your love for them.
And they're very likely to feel that in a sense because being older, you're more likely to have more time, maybe more money, and in various ways, as they look to you, they may see that your second set of children are getting a better deal in some senses.
I'm laughing because my daughter does that same thing. The amazing thing is you think your kid's the only one doing it, and then you see about 12 others in the course of a day that do it.
just want to say that Dennis told his children that real love has endless capacity, and it's true. We might have limitations on patience, but love has no end and no beginning.
Okay. All right. We have to take a break. In what time we have left, one of our audience members off-air raised an interesting question about how you raise sons and daughters differently, and you want to share a story about that when we come back. I would imagine, we're back, we're on, it's happening. I would imagine that many parents, regardless of your kid's age, occasionally have bouts with headaches. And we're going to be doing a show on Monday. For chronic headache sufferers, many have turned to art as a way to deal with their pain. It's a very interesting project. There's been a lot in the papers about it, too. You may have seen some. They'll be with us with their artwork, and if you would like to be in the audience to talk about also how to get rid of headaches, because that'll be part of the show. 787-7109. Also, if you'd like to join us for next Friday show, a week from today, we're talking about people who have babies over the years. We're going to talk with folks who have a lot of spouses over the years, up to 21 or 27 times. I think one of our guests has been married. Marriage addicts for next Friday show. Now, you were talking, sir, about the differences between raising boys and girls.
Yeah, is it easier to raise boys than girls? Because boys tend to move out faster than girls. I'm not a chauvinist, but I'm just...
Are you a dad?
No, not a dad. Not yet.
You look panicked when I asked you that. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it's necessarily any easier. I mean, I think each child presents his own unique challenges and joys. One thing I would say is that I think some of the ways that men have traditionally differentiated the sexes is starting to change. Gentleman, I think it was John, mentioned that he kisses his sons. Now, when I grew up, and I think when most of the older men in the audience grew up, men didn't kiss men. But there's nothing wrong with showing affection for a man to show affection to his son.
Right.
And in fact, that conveys a sense of security to him that's very important. The other thing that dads tend to do differently is to react to their daughters as if they all came with labels that said delicate, handled with care. Now, in a world in which most women have to learn to compete in order to work in the workforce, that's out of place. So responding to your daughter according to her own unique abilities is important. If she wants to climb a tree, don't move in to overprotect. And if she gets dirty, just like your son does playing out in the yard, don't overreact with, oh my God,
One final question quickly. Do you think you're willing to do it again, Vico, or is this it?
I've considered it, but my wife is sort of thinking about it. I don't know. It's a very big decision. It's a commitment. It's sharing. It's caring. It's going through the whole process again.
Let me quickly mention at Wheelock College tomorrow on the Riverway in Boston, there is a Focus on Fatherhood conference. I'll be there as one of the speakers. Also, just going to some of the seminars and learning stuff too. It's from 1 to 4:30. You can call the college for more information. And join us tonight for a very special edition of Evening Magazine at 7:30. Uma Pemaraju and I will introduce you to some of the young athletes at the annual Special Olympics Summer Games going on this weekend in Boston. Have a good weekend, everybody, and a happy Father's Day. Thank you all.